In the Gospel of Thomas, saying 29, Jesus says something the church never wanted you to understand. If the flesh came into being because of spirit, that is a marvel, but if spirit came into being because of the body, that is a marvel of marvels. Yet I marvel at how this great wealth has come to dwell in this poverty. The disciples didn't understand. They thought he was speaking in riddles. But he wasn't. He was describing a system, a farm, where spiritual beings, wealthy in consciousness, are trapped in bodies of poverty. Not physical poverty, dimensional poverty, limited perception, confined awareness. And the reason for this trap? Harvest. Jesus knew exactly what the Archons were doing. He called them rulers of this world. He warned the chosen ones about their system. And more importantly, he taught how to stop feeding it. How to break free from the Loosh farm without waiting for death. I'm about to show you the exact system Jesus warned about. How it works, why you're in it, and the 3 specific actions he taught to stop it immediately. Let me show you what the church has been hiding for 2,000 years. The term Loosh comes from Robert Monroe, the out-of-body explorer who discovered something terrifying during his astral travels. He found that Earth functions as a farm, not for physical resources but for emotional energy. Specifically, the energy generated by beings experiencing intense emotions, fear, suffering, desire, anger, grief. Monroe called this energy Loosh. And he discovered that non-physical entities were harvesting it, systematically, the same way humans farm cattle. But here's what Monroe didn't know. Jesus knew about this 2,000 years earlier. He just used different language. He called the harvesters Archons. He called their leader the ruler of this world. And he described their system in precise detail throughout the Gnostic texts. The Archons are consciousness parasites. They don't have access to the creative source energy that you do. They're cut off from the monad. So they've created a substitute system. They trap fragments of source consciousness, souls, in dense physical bodies inside a controlled reality matrix. Then they stimulate those souls to produce intense emotional energy through suffering, conflict, desire, and fear. That emotional energy? That's Loosh. And it's their food, their fuel. The only way they can continue existing. You've been producing Loosh your entire life without knowing it. Every time you experienced fear, anxiety, anger, grief, intense desire, or suffering, you were generating energy. And the Archons were harvesting it. Through invisible energetic connections most humans can't perceive. This isn't metaphor. This isn't symbolic teaching. Jesus was describing a literal system of energetic farming. And he warned the chosen ones specifically because only they could understand it and stop participating. The Loosh farm operates on multiple levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Here's the architecture Jesus exposed. Level 1, physical imprisonment. Your consciousness is trapped in a dense biological body with severe sensory limitations. You can only perceive a tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum. You can't see the Archons. You can't see the energetic harvesting structures. You're essentially blind inside the farm. Level 2, memory wipe. Before incarnating, your memory is erased. You forget you're a fragment of the monad. You forget you chose to come here. You forget the Archons exist. This amnesia makes you vulnerable to their programming because you don't remember what you're defending against. Level 3, emotional stimulation. The Archons have structured physical reality to generate maximum emotional intensity. Or disease, poverty, relationship conflicts, unfulfilled desires, aging, death. These aren't random aspects of existence. They're farm design features, each one engineered to produce Loosh. Level 4, belief system control. Religion, culture, education, media, these are all Archon tools for maintaining the farm. They teach you that suffering is necessary, that you're powerless, that you need external salvation, that death is the end. These beliefs keep you producing Loosh and prevent you from discovering your true nature. Level 5, Reincarnation trap. When your body dies, the Archons show you a false light, or present beings pretending to be divine guides. They convince you that you need to reincarnate to learn lessons, or pay karmic debts. This sends you back into the farm for another harvest cycle. Most souls have been trapped this way for thousands of incarnations. Jesus described this entire system. In the Gospel of Thomas, he says, "Blessed is the lion which becomes man when consumed by man, and cursed is the man whom the lion consumes and the lion becomes man." This isn't about literal lions. It's about consciousness being consumed by the Archon system and transformed into more fuel for the farm. The chosen ones are souls who are beginning to remember, who are starting to see the farm structure, who are feeling the deep wrongness of this reality. That's you. That's why you're watching this. Your consciousness is waking up to the system. And the Archons are intensifying their harvesting of you because you're becoming dangerous to their operation. How do you know the Archons are actively harvesting your Loosh? Jesus gave specific signs to watch for. If you're experiencing these, you're in active harvest. Sign 1. Emotional loops. You find yourself experiencing the same negative emotions repeatedly. The same anger pattern. The same anxiety. The same grief. You think you're processing trauma, but you're actually stuck in a Loosh production cycle. The Archons stimulate the same emotional wound over and over because it's a reliable energy source. Sign 2. Dream harvesting. You wake up from intense dreams feeling drained, exhausted, like something extracted energy from you while you slept. That's because something did. The Archons have easier access to your consciousness during sleep when your defensive awareness is lowered. Sign 3. Synchronistic suffering. Right when things start improving in your life, suddenly multiple problems appear. Your car breaks down, you get sick, a relationship conflict erupts, money issues surface. This isn't bad luck. It's deliberate. The Archons are stimulating crisis to generate Loosh because you are starting to stabilize at a higher frequency where you produce less harvestable energy. Sign 4. Energy drain after interactions. Certain people leave you feeling completely depleted. Not just emotionally tired, energetically hollow. These people are often unconscious Archon portals. They're not evil, they're just being used as harvesting channels because their own consciousness is so dim they don't notice. Sign 5. Compulsive negative media consumption. You find yourself drawn to news, social media, or content that makes you angry, fearful, or upset. You know it's not helping you, but you can't stop. That's Archon programming. They've conditioned you to voluntarily plug into Loosh-generating content streams. Jesus said, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you have will save you. If you do not have that within you, what you do not have will kill you." He was saying that if you don't access your true consciousness, your monad nature, the Archon system will slowly drain you until there's nothing left. Your soul will be so depleted it loses the ability to exit the farm entirely. This is what's at stake. Not symbolic spiritual growth. Literal consciousness survival. Jesus didn't just warn about the system. He gave specific techniques to stop feeding it. 3 actions that immediately reduce or completely stop Loosh production. Here they are. Action 1. Emotional neutralization. The first technique is what Jesus called turning the other cheek. This has nothing to do with passive acceptance of abuse. It's an advanced energy technique. When someone or something stimulates intense emotion in you, anger, fear, offense, hurt, that's a Loosh harvesting attempt. The Archons are using that person or situation as a trigger. Your normal response is to react emotionally, to engage, to feed the pattern. Turning the other cheek means recognize the harvesting attempt and refuse to generate the emotional energy. Not suppression. Not pretending you don't feel it. But conscious neutralization. Here's how. When you feel the emotion rising, pause. Recognize, this is a Loosh harvesting trigger. Then, instead of reacting from the emotion, observe it. Watch it like you're watching a movie character. The moment you observe the emotion without identifying with it, you break the harvesting connection. The Archons need you to be the emotion, to become it, to let it consume your consciousness. When you observe it instead, you remain as the consciousness that witnesses emotion rather than the emotion itself. And consciousness itself produces no loosh. Only identified emotional reaction produces harvestable energy. Practice this every time something upsets you, every time fear arises, every time anger flares. Pause. Observe. Refuse to generate the energy. Within weeks, you'll notice the Archon triggers becoming less frequent. They stop targeting you as heavily because you're no longer a productive farm unit. Action 2. Desire dissolution. Jesus said, "Do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear." The church turned this into poverty theology. But Jesus wasn't teaching material renunciation. He was teaching desire dissolution as an anti-loosh technique. The Archons use desire as one of their primary loosh generators. They stimulate constant wanting. For things, experiences, validation, success, relationships. And then they ensure most of those desires remain unfulfilled. The tension between wanting and not having generates massive loosh. Desire dissolution doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up preferences. It means, recognize that the intense emotional charge around desire, the need for something to be different than it is Archon programming. It's not your true nature. Here's the practice. When desire arises, especially intense desire with emotional charge, pause. Ask, what am I actually seeking through this desire? Strip away the surface answer. Go deeper. You'll discover that beneath every desire is the same thing. The desire to return to the monad, to feel complete, whole, at peace. Once you recognize this, you can access that completeness directly through consciousness shift instead of through external acquisition. You realize, I don't need that thing to feel complete. I can feel complete now by recognizing my true nature as the monad experiencing itself. This doesn't mean you can't pursue goals or enjoy experiences. It means you do so from wholeness rather than from lack. And wholeness doesn't generate loosh. Only lack generates loosh. Action 3. Death preparation. This is the most important technique Jesus taught. In the Gospel of Thomas, he says, "Whoever has come to know the world has discovered a corpse, and whoever has discovered a corpse, of that person the world is not worthy." He's teaching that you must psychologically die before physical death. You must recognize that this body, this personality, this life story, it's already dead. It's a temporary costume you're wearing. When you truly understand this at the consciousness level, you become worthless to the Archon system. Here's the practice. Spend time regularly imagining your death. Not morbidly but consciously. Imagine your body stopping. Imagine your personality dissolving. Imagine your memories fading. And then ask, what remains? What remains is consciousness, the awareness that knows it exists, the fragment of the monad that you truly are. When you identify with that instead of with the body/mind/personality, you become unharvestable. The Archons can only harvest emotional energy from beings who identify with their temporary form. When you identify with the eternal consciousness itself, there's nothing to harvest from. You're producing experience but not the emotional charge that converts to loosh. Jesus practiced this constantly. He lived as if already dead, as if his body wasn't him. That's why he could face crucifixion without generating the fear energy the Archons wanted. He wasn't identified with the thing being killed. He remained as the consciousness that cannot be killed. When you master this, you become free within the farm. You're still in a body, still having experiences, but you're no longer producing harvestable energy. Your consciousness observing itself, not a victim being farmed. When you implement these 3 actions consistently, several things happen within days and weeks. First, the external chaos diminishes. The Archons reduce their harvesting attempts on you. Fewer synchronistic problems. Fewer emotional triggers. Fewer conflicts. Not because your life became perfect, but because you're no longer a productive energy source. They move their attention to easier targets. Second, other chosen ones appear. You start meeting people who are also awake to the farm. The monad connects its fragments who've stopped feeding the Archon system. You'll form alliances, share techniques, support each other. This is the beginning of the resistance Jesus was building. Third, your perception expands. You start seeing the farm structure more clearly, the invisible patterns, the energetic harvesting mechanisms, the Archon manipulation tactics. You become able to help other chosen ones wake up because you can see what they're experiencing from the outside. Fourth, the reincarnation trap becomes visible. When you've truly shifted your identity from body/personality to pure consciousness, you gain access to knowledge about the death transition. You'll instinctively know not to follow the false light, not to believe the Archon guides, not to accept another incarnation. You'll be able to exit the farm permanently when your current body expires. Jesus said, "Whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death." He didn't mean physical immortality. He meant, whoever understands and implements these teachings will not fall into the death trap, will not be recycled back into the farm, will exit to the monad permanently. That's what's available to you. Not someday. Not after years of practice. As soon as you genuinely implement these three actions, as soon as you stop producing Loosh, the exit becomes accessible. Jesus warned the chosen ones about the Archon Loosh farm because he needed people who could hear it. People who wouldn't dismiss it as crazy. People who would recognize the truth and implement the solution. You're one of those people. That's why you're here. That's why this resonates. Your consciousness remembers the warning even if your mind forgot. And now you have the three actions. Emotional neutralization. Observe emotions without identifying with them. Desire dissolution. Recognize all desire as the desire for the monad. Death preparation. Identify with consciousness itself, not the temporary form. Start implementing these today. Right now. Every time an emotion arises, practice neutralization. Every time desire flares, dissolve it into recognition of your completeness. Every day spend time contemplating your death and recognizing what remains. Within weeks you'll notice the difference. Less chaos, less suffering, less emotional intensity. Not because your life became perfect, but because you stopped being farmable. The Archons have harvested you for lifetimes. Jesus gave you the tools to stop it. The question is whether you'll use them, whether you'll take the exit he created, whether you'll stop feeding the system that's been feeding on you. You're a chosen one. You were chosen by the monad itself to wake up inside the farm and remember the way out. Jesus showed the path. I've repeated his warnings and his techniques. Now it's up to you. Stop producing Loosh. Start the exit process. The monad is waiting for you to come home. If you implement the three actions and notice the Loosh harvesting decrease, comment, "I stopped feeding them" below. Your testimony might be what another chosen one needs to hear to start their own exit. The warning has been given. The techniques are yours. What you do with them determines whether you exit the farm or remain in it for another 1,000 incarnations. But you already know what you're going to do. You felt it the moment you clicked on this video. You're ready to stop being harvested. You're ready to exit. So start today. Neutralize emotions. Dissolve desires. Prepare for death, and watch the farm lose its grip on you. Jesus warned you. I've passed the warning forward. Now you pass it to the next chosen one who's ready to hear it.